So, Ceramics 1 students, I wanted to show you the next steps for the animal project. And once you have your animal's basic form of the body and proportions and everything are correct, you're ready to move on to the next step, which is we need to hollow out the inside of this animal. It's too thick right now for us to safely put in the kiln, so we're going to need to take out some of the excess clay, and I'm going to show you how to do that right here. So the first step is to make sure your animal's ready for this. As long as it's firm, it's not too soft and floppy, it should be strong enough for this process. If yours is still really soft and you need to firm it up a little bit, just use the hair dryer and get the surface of the animal kind of dried a little bit, and then it should be strong enough for this step. So what you're going to do first is decide where to cut it. We don't want to cut it long ways because that's a lot more work to put it all back together if we have this much to put back together. So we're going to cut it crossways here. So what I like to do is kind of guess where you think a good place to cut it would be. And so I'm just marking it right now to sort of decide that if I cut it here, I can go this direction and hollow out this side, and I can also go this direction and hollow out this side. So I can reach everything that I need to on the inside from that one cut. Now if you had a horse or a giraffe and the neck goes up from here, you might have to cut it multiple times, but you'll use the same process. So I'm going to cut it here on this line across the body, and I'm going to put some deep marks into it, and those are going to let me know where to put it back together later. Alright, so when you cut it, don't saw, just make a clean slice through the animal's body and try not to saw back and forth. Now I have done a demo for this several times with the other classes, so you can see mine is a little, it's already been hollowed out. So yours won't have that, of course. When you cut it open, it will be solid clay on both sides. So the idea here is we want to hollow out each side, and you can kind of see I've left myself enough clay here to make it pinky thick, and I'm starting to scoop out the inside. So the inside is going to be scooped out with this round loop tool, which you have in your kit, and you just want to go in and just carefully start taking out some of this extra clay on the inside. So keep an eye on the thickness. We want to keep this thickness even all the way around your cut. So as you're scooping, try not to go close to the sides because you'll cut through the side. If you do cut through the side, you can patch it up with slip and score and a little extra piece of clay. So anyway, you keep scooping and taking out these extra bits of clay and thinning out your animal's body. So you're going to keep doing that. Now here's a little trick to check your depth. How far have I carved in? So if you just look in the hole, it's hard to tell. So if you slide your loop tool all the way to where it stops, as deep as you've carved, you take your thumb, slide it up to the side like this, hold the loop tool, take it out, flip your thumb over, slide your thumb up to the side again, and right there where my loop tool is, that's how deep I have carved. So I would want to carve this down until it was probably there, close to the tail where it starts to get thin. So that's a way for you to tell as you scoop how deep you are. So you continue scooping, check your thickness just like you would on any other project that we've done. Check your thickness all the way around, make sure that it's no more than pinky thick on this side and also on this side. Okay, and once you've got it thinned out on both sides, you're ready to reattach these two pieces. Okay, so I have my two marks there, and so that kind of tells me where it's going to go back together. And sometimes you have to just kind of work some of these edges back together. They get a little deformed while you're scooping. Okay, so if you have to sort of force some of these back together, that's fine. Alright, but now I can see I've got my lines matched up, and I know that my fish is going to go back together. So this is where you're going to take your toothpick and you're going to carefully score these edges. I like to go lines very close together and nice and deep into this clay, and then I also am going to go across those lines. I find that this makes the best, strongest joint. Okay, so you're going to do that all the way around this piece and all the way around this piece. I'm going to save a little time, not do all of that. Then we're ready for slip. So like all the other attachments we've done, you're going to paint that connection with some of your slip. Okay, get that again all over this side, all over the other side. I'm not going to take time to do all of that. You know how that works. So I'm going to now take my two edges and I'm going to make sure my lines are together there. You can see those are still lined up. And I'm going to sort of press and squeeze and turn and try to twist this into place. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me a nice strong slip and score connection just by pressing it together and twisting it slightly. So now I've got this seam back together. I've slipped and scored, but I'm going to go one step farther here and I'm going to make this a much stronger connection. And the way that I do that is by something called a coil replacement. So I'm going to take the tip of my knife and I'm going to scoop it out right on the seam. So wherever I made that cut, I'm going to put the knife right into the seam. Now, not too deep. I just want to make a slight groove around that seam, and you would do that all the way around the back side too. This is just the front that I'm showing you. So now I've got this groove that goes around it, and what that groove does is it sort of meshes the two halves back together like this. But now we've got this groove. So what you'll do is take a piece of soft clay. Even the pieces that you carved out in the middle should be pretty soft still. If it's not soft enough, you can always add just a little bit of water and work it together until it's a nice soft piece of clay. So all you need is a little piece of clay, and you're going to roll out a small coil. So a coil is just this rope-shaped piece of clay, and you don't need a very thick coil because all we're doing is replacing that little bit that we kind of pushed in with the tip of the knife. So you don't want to make a big giant coil to fill that back in, just a little coil that kind of nestles down into that groove. And that looks about right for the size of that coil. So I'm going to take my sponge with a little water on it and I'm just going to go over the coil so that it's kind of wet and sticky. You want to make sure that that sticks into that groove. So you're going to take the coil, you're going to lay it into the groove like that. Okay, and you just want to press it in so it stays there, but don't do too much. So remember, now the fish is hollow. So I want to be careful that I don't put too much pressure down when I smooth it. So if I use my thumb and I try to wipe this across, I'm going to have to use a lot of pressure with my thumb to smooth it because my thumb is cushiony. So you don't want to use your finger or your thumb. What you want to use is your wood knife, which is this tool right here. This, you can press on it very lightly and it will smooth the clay back together. So if you were to use your finger, you have to use a lot more pressure. I am barely pressing on this tool and it's doing a wonderful job of smoothing it back together. So I go across one way and then I'm going to go across the other way, and I'm just trying to make this seam go back together where I can't really see it that I've even cut it. So again, be gentle with it. You don't want to put too much pressure on your animal because we don't want to push in on the side and collapse it. So I'm actually using kind of the flat part of the tool, not the rounded tip as much now. So I'm going over it with this flat side, and I usually go in different directions. So sometimes if you go, you definitely don't want to go this way across it. So I go across the seam, don't go in line with the seam. So what happens eventually is you just take your time, be patient, and keep working that across both ways in different directions until you can't see that seam anymore where you cut it. And that's the goal of putting it back together this way, is that we don't want to see that it was ever cut, so it looks like it was always one piece. Now once you've got your seam back together all the way around wherever you cut it, now you're ready to finish the details. So I still have some fins to sculpt and add to it. A fin over here. I'm going to work on the eyes a little bit, maybe on the mouth a little, and start adding my final details to the animal project. And that should be enough to keep you busy for a few days working on that. If you have any questions while you're sculpting, carving things out, send me an email and ask for some help, and I'd be happy to give you more information.